So we have fossils in the ground, fuel in the water, and strike threats in the sky. Today's news is all about survival, strategy, and overdue shakeups. From grounded flights to political fault lines, it's getting harder to tell who's running the show and who's running out of time. My friends, this is Daily Bagel, the 8-minute head start you didn't know you needed. Let's get into it. And kicking us off with current affairs, FlySafair, South Africa's largest domestic airline, is heading for turbulence. And I'll tell you what, it is not in the sky. So pilots represented by the Solidarity Union are reportedly preparing to strike after 3 months of wage talks collapsed. You see, the airline's final offer here was a 5.7% raise. The union's ask, though, was almost double that. But this isn't just about the money. You see, pilots say that the airline's new shift rosters and leave policies have made the whole work-life balance impossible, and that the relationship with management has hit an absolute low. So the strike rules are reportedly being finalized today with the CCMA, meaning that pilots could down their tools as early as next week, setting the stage for some serious travel disruptions if no deal is reached. Now, FlySafair says that contingency plans are in place and that passengers can book with confidence. But with 2/3 of their pilots represented by the union and cabin crew negotiations also reportedly looking shaky, there's reason for concern. And on to our quickfire mentions, the post office won't receive the full 6.2 billion rand bailout that it was banking on. Treasury has pulled 3.8 billion rand off the table, leaving just 1.8 billion over 3 years, which apparently is barely enough to cover basic operations. Now, rescue practitioners say that without more funding, this turnaround plan is effectively on hold. And Parliament has officially confirmed that it will form an ad hoc committee to probe Police Commissioner Mkhwanazi's explosive claims regarding SAP's interference and political meddling. Now, the committee will be formally adopted by the National Assembly on the 23rd of July. And on to our finance section. Shell's latest green light to drill for oil off South Africa's west coast has reignited old tensions and reminded activists that this isn't the first clash with the energy giant. So taking a trip down memory lane, remember just 3 years ago, Shell was forced to abandon plans to explore the Wild Coast after courts ruled that it hadn't properly consulted local communities. And so that legal fight became like a landmark case, one that pitted cultural rights and environmental protection against corporate ambition. You might even remember those Shell bumper stickers that popped up around the time. So now Shell has been granted environmental authorization to drill up to 5 wells 300 kilometers off the Northern Cape coastline. Now, civil society groups say, hey, this is deja vu to us. The government is now ignoring small-scale fishers who rely on these waters to survive, as well as downplaying the risk to marine ecosystems that are already under pressure. So Shell argues that this project can strengthen energy security and drive development. But with coastal activists already gearing up for resistance, it's starting to feel like a rematch, this time on the West Coast. And next up, with the upcoming US tariffs set to choke South Africa's auto exports, South Africa is now asking whether China can save our car industry. You see, Trade Minister Parks Tao says that government is now in talks with 3 major Chinese car brands about scaling up local investments, including new assembly plants to replace lost US demand. So one likely contender here is reportedly Boks, which already runs a semi-assembled facility in Kruger but hasn't turned a profit since opening in 2018. Still though, Tao says that those talks are progressing well. In the end here though, the bigger picture is tapping into this surging demand for cheaper Chinese SUVs and hybrids, which are now flooding South African showrooms and undercutting the bigger, more traditional players. So with AGOA hanging by a thread and local manufacturers under pressure, this pivot east isn't just about growth, it's about keeping factories open and keeping jobs intact. And on to our quickfire mentions. According to new data from Morgan Stanley and the South African Property Owners Association, South Africa delivered the highest local currency property return in 2024, beating over 30 countries thanks to strong rental income from retail and industrial sectors. And new BankServe data shows that South Africans spent more in Q2, with electronic transactions rising both in volume and value. Some analysts say that it's a strong signal that the economy has picked up after a sluggish start to 2025. Hey, and just a quick one before we continue. Look, if this show has become a part of your morning routine, chances are you're into it. So stop keeping us to yourself, and please may I ask to share us with your family WhatsApp group. Look, we're still small, we're still growing, and honestly, your auntie who only reads Facebook news headlines probably needs us more than you do. And on to our sports section. The Springboks are throwing 3 uncapped players in the front row this Saturday as they wrap up their July Test series against Georgia and Nelspruit. So Bowen Fencer, Marnus van der Merwe, and Neethling Forshey will all make their Test debuts. Behind them though sits a heavy-hitting tight 5 led by Etzebeth, plus 160 caps worth of muscle waiting on the bench. Now this match also marks Siya Kolisi's return to the starting 15 and a new look backline featuring Sasha Feinberg and Gamazulu at fly half and Fussy at fullback. So one notable absence is Jasper Wiese, who's been handed a 4-match ban for what can only be described as a head tap, even a forehead kiss against Italy. World Rugby, however, deemed it a brutal and malicious headbutt. Anyways, kickoff is set for 5:10 on Saturday, and with the Rugby Championship looming, this is one last audition before the big guns return. And on to our quickfire mentions. Johan Ackerman has officially been named the Bulls head coach, replacing Jake White. And with a host of Springboks and rising stars in the squad, the former Lions coach is now tasked with turning raw talent into a cohesive unit. Kaizer Chiefs captain Yusuf Mart has completed a 15 million rand move to Austria's SV Ried. The midfielder made 95 appearances in gold and black, including the winning goal in last year's Nedbank Cup final. And Gaten McKenzie says that Kyle Lami's F1 circuit could be race ready in just 6 months, with corporate backing from MTN, MultiChoice, and others. Now, no government funding is reportedly needed, just private sponsors and deep-pocketed patriots. And before we continue, here is something to chew on. Which country currently produces the most oil in Africa? Is it A, Angola, B, Nigeria, or C, Libya? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. And on to our wildcard section. Look, long before TikTok or tax brackets, the Free State was dinosaur territory. And now it finally has the museum to prove it. So the new Domo Domo Dinosaur Interpretation Center has recently opened in Golden Gate Highlands National Park, built on real fossil beds where these giants once roamed. Among them, a 12-ton plant eater nicknamed the Giant Thunderclap for the way it must have shaken the ground as it moved, as well as the Massus pondylus, which is South Africa's most iconic dinosaur, with fossilized eggs discovered nearby. But now this isn't just about bones and plaques. The center blends full-scale dinosaur models with Basotho folklore, bringing ancient science and indigenous storytelling together under one roof. It's a first-of-its-kind project and a major tourism play for one of South Africa's most overlooked provinces. So the best part here is that entry is free for South Africans until the end of September. So if you've ever wanted to come face-to-face with a thunderclap from 200 million years ago, this is your shot. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is Nigeria. The country currently produces over 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, making it Africa's top oil producer. Now, Angola and Libya both pump more than 1 million barrels daily as well, but Nigeria's combination of scale, infrastructure, and export capacity continues to keep it ahead. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in and for forwarding this video on to your family WhatsApp group. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for the final show of the week. It's going to be a goodie. I'll catch you guys all then. Cheers.